Dan Issel was someone who made the most out of what he was given. He gave up a lot of size in most of his matchups, but his basketball IQ and timing allowed him to be successful. Dan was a beast on the glass, and his offensive game was a glimpse into the modern era. He was one of the best shooters in the league, being able to knock down 20-foot jumpers consistently. He could put the ball on the floor and drive to the rim, or he could post up his man, using an extensive arsenal of moves to score at will. Dan always had his head on a swivel, whether it was looking for a cutting teammate or hurling an accurate outlet pass down court. He wasn't an all-world defender, but he gave 100% on that side of the floor. After becoming the all-time leading scorer at the University of Kentucky, the Pistons picked him in the 8th round in 1970, while the Kentucky Colonels picked him in the 1st round and offered him $1 million contract, so off to the Bluegrass State he went. Dan immediately made an impact, leading the league in scoring as a rookie. Once Artis Gilmore joined the Colonels in 1971, they became a powerhouse in the ABA, as Dan made multiple All-Star and All-ABA teams. After multiple playoff disappointments, the Colonels finally won the title in 1975, but all of a sudden, Dan was traded to the Baltimore Claws, as financial difficulties clipped the wings of this potential dynasty. Dan ended up on the Denver Nuggets, where he would spend the rest of his career. Even though he proved to be a consistent player after the merger, the fans in Kentucky got to see him at his absolute best. So let's look at the beginning of the Horse's Hall of Fame career. Welcome to PG Hoops, and this is another episode of ABA Tales. Dan had just set the all-time scoring record at Kentucky by the time he graduated in 1970, but for some reason, he wasn't that high on NBA draft boards, being selected in the 8th round by the Pistons. But the Kentucky Colonels pounced at the chance to sign a local kid, offering him a 10-year contract worth $1.4 million. Dan already liked living in Kentucky, and he earned the nickname Horse because of his durability and also since he raised his own thoroughbreds in the offseason. He got along well with former Wildcat Louis Dampier, so he felt at home with the Colonels. Dan was given the keys to the offense right away, and he didn't disappoint, dropping 43 points and 10 rebounds in his 4th career game. He was a highly efficient offensive machine, putting up 45 points and 23 rebounds on Pittsburgh, 40 points and 29 rebounds on Texas, and 51 points, 11 rebounds, and 3 assists on the Cougars. Dan had 11 games with at least 40 points, easily running away with the scoring title. He was also 6th in rebounds, 6th in field goal percentage, and 3rd in free throws made. He earned an All-Star nod and a spot on the All-ABA second team. Louis, Cincy Powell, Darryl Carrier, and Goose Ligon all put up solid numbers, as Kentucky went through 3 different head coaches, but their high-powered offense carried them to 44 wins. Dan shared the Rookie of the Year award with Charlie Scott, averaging 30 points, 13 rebounds, and 2 assists, as the Colonels faced the Floridians in the semifinals. Dan had 26 in games 1 and 2, followed by 27 and 11 in game 6 to help Kentucky advance. He would have a field day against the Squires in the next round, dropping 46 and 12 in game 1, 36 and 21 in game 5, and 31 and 11 in game 6 to take the series. Dan had led Kentucky to the ABA Finals as a rookie, and they were up against the Utah Stars. He put up his usual numbers, but this series was a highly competitive battle, with both teams refusing to quit. It came down to game 7 in Utah, as Dan certainly came to play, dropping 41 points and 12 rebounds, while Darryl dropped 31 points, making 5 threes. However, Louis and Cincy shot a combined 13 of 36 from the floor, as the Colonels lost by 10. Even after such a close loss in the finals, things would get even better for Kentucky in 1971, as they signed Artis Gilmore, a dominating force inside. But Dan had the versatility to slide down to the power forward, as his shooting range allowed him to play further from the basket, thus leaving the paint open for Artis to operate. He was unconscious to start the season, averaging 34 points and 11 rebounds in the first 8 games. He dropped 44 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists on Virginia, and 39 points, 20 rebounds, and 3 assists on Pittsburgh. February was his best month of the year, averaging 31 points and 14 rebounds on 50% shooting. Artis was dominant as a rookie, winning the MVP, while Dan was the runner-up, but he set an ABA record with 2,538 points this season. He also became the first ABA player to score 5,000 points in a 2-year span. Dan was 10th in rebounding and 4th in defensive win shares. The Colonels were the best team in the league, as they were the most efficient shooting team, while also allowing the lowest field goal percentage. They won 68 games, as Dan averaged 31 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 assists. The Colonels faced the Nets in the semifinals, but Dan wasn't playing like his usual self, shooting only 41% and averaging 5 turnovers a game, as Kentucky was upset in 6. Despite this, Dan earned a reputation as a shooter after this year, as he doubled down, saying, "Shooters are adrenaline junkies. Shooters would trade their firstborn for a 50-point night. Shooters are addicted to reading their names in headlines. Shooters have themselves paged at Kmart's just to hear their names over the loudspeaker. Shooters yanked the cords of Venetian blinds just to experience the sound of sinking nylon mesh. Kentucky retooled in 1972 as they looked to compete for a title again. Artis settled into a supporting role, allowing Dan to take command of the offense, and he continued to produce, dropping 36 points, 20 rebounds, 5 assists, and 7 steals on the Nets, along with a near 5-by-5 game against Denver with 38 points, 14 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 steals, and 4 blocks. This was the best passing season of his ABA career, as he dished at least 5 assists in 12 games. Dan was also impacting all areas of the box score, finishing 3rd in points, 6th in rebounds, 2nd in field goal percentage, 13th in steals, and 15th in blocks. Claude Verdon was a solid rookie, while Wendell Ladner was a late season acquisition that helped them a lot, as they finished 56 and 28. Dan averaged 27 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal, as he was on fire in the semifinals against Virginia, averaging 36 points and 11 rebounds on 60% shooting in the first 3 games. Kentucky won in the gentleman's sweep, facing Carolina in the second round. He had a shaky first couple games, but he really picked it up after this, helping the Colonels win Game 7 on the road, clinching another ABA Finals appearance, this time against the Pacers. This was another back-and-forth war that went the distance, but Dan went cold at the worst time, shooting 5 for 15 in Game 7 as the Colonels lost the championship at home. Kentucky was bringing in a lot of players in 1973, as Artis, Dan, and Louis seemed to be the only consistent pieces on the team. Dan continued to excel, averaging 31 and 12 in the first 5 games. He put up 30 points, 19 rebounds, and 5 assists on Memphis, 46 points and 7 rebounds on Denver, and 22 points with 2 3-pointers against Utah. He was a top 10 scorer and rebounder, while Artis and Mike Gale shared a spot on the first team all-defense. Louis was the most accurate long-range shooter in the league, as Kentucky finished with 53 wins. Dan averaged 26 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists as they faced Carolina in the semifinals. Without Billy Cunningham, the Cougars didn't stand a chance, and they were swept. The New York Nets would prove to be too much for Kentucky though, as they would be swept pretty easily. Kentucky fans felt like 1974 might finally be their year to win it all. Will Jones, Ted McClain, and Burt Abbott were all great additions. New coach Babe McCarthy would run the offense through Artis this year, so Dan's numbers took a dive. He was still great when he got the opportunity, dropping 36 points and 9 rebounds on the Spurs, 22 points, 13 rebounds, and 6 assists on the Spirits, and 16 points, 9 rebounds, and 9 assists on Denver. He was still one of the top players in the league, as Artis anchored the Colonels' elite defense. Kentucky won 58 games this year, as Dan averaged 18 points, 9 rebounds, and 2 assists. He dropped 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists in the tiebreaker game against the Nets, as they won this one, setting up a favorable matchup against Memphis. Dan dropped 4 straight 20-point outings, as they easily won the series in 5 games. The Spirits eliminated the Nets in the semifinals, so they had a date with Kentucky as the trip to the finals was up for grabs. Dan dropped 31 in Game 3 and 28 in a closeout Game 5. The Colonels met Indiana again in the finals, but they were ready this time. Dan averaged 22 points and 12 rebounds in a 5-game series win, as Kentucky finally brought the title home. The Kentucky faithful felt like a dynasty was on the horizon, but with the ABA in danger of folding, money was tight. So owner John Y. Brown traded Dan to the Baltimore Claws for Tom Owens and $750,000. After initially thinking that he would play in Kentucky for his whole career, this sudden move did cause him to harbor some negative feelings at first. After the Claws folded before the start of the season, Dan was traded to the Nuggets for Dave Robish. He was back at center as he joined the starting lineup of Chuck Williams, Bobby Jones, Ralph Simpson, and David Thompson. He had 24 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals in the 4th game of the year, along with 35 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals on the Pacers, followed by a season-high 44 points and 10 rebounds on Virginia. Dan ranked in the top 20 in 4 out of the 5 major statistical categories, while Denver's offense was extremely effective, as they were first in field goal percentage, free throw rate, assists, and points. The Nuggets ran like a well-oiled machine, sporting the league's best record at 60-24. Dan averaged 23 points, 11 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. The Nuggets faced off against Dan's former team in the semifinals, but his numbers and his efficiency were down. But Denver was able to blow them out in Game 7, making the ABA Finals against the Nets. Even as Dan picked up his play, the Nuggets were down 3-1 heading into Game 5. In this game, he dropped 21 points and 11 rebounds on 8 of 12 shooting to help the Nuggets survive another day. In his last ABA game, he put up 30 points, 20 rebounds, and 3 assists, but the Nets pulled it out in 6. Dan would remain with the Nuggets through the merger, playing another 8 years, as he averaged 20 points 5 more times. In terms of his all-time ABA numbers, he's 2nd in points, 6th in rebounds, and 4th in free throws. Dan Issel was already a well-known name in Kentucky before he even reached the pro ranks, but starting his career there was too big of an opportunity to pass up. Well, along with the massive contract as well. But Dan would be worth every penny, as he was elite from the onset. He often gave up a lot of size to his matchup, but he presented a unique challenge, as his shooting range often meant that his man had to leave the paint to guard him. He didn't beat you with athletic ability and strength, he won with basketball IQ and skill. He had the traits of a modern big man, but he wasn't afraid to mix stuff down low. Dan was one of the best players in ABA history, embodying toughness, dedication, and commitment. Thank you guys. I really appreciate y'all for all the support. And what else can I really say about Dan? He did his job, didn't complain, he just did what he had to do. He was extremely reliable. Like, it's just so straightforward. Just, I give you a hook shot in the post. I might give you a turnaround jumper, do a little step through pivot, and finish on the other side of the rim. I might hit a jump shot from 20 feet. Like, his game is so simple, but he was so effective, and he's so efficient. And the fact that he was averaging 30 points with Artis Gilmore, like, I love how they found a way to coexist on the same team. When I do these like portions of their ABA careers, I'm going to do the NBA version. I want to get the ABA part out of the way because that's the best part of these players' careers most often. ABA Artis Gilmore was the best version of Artis Gilmore. ABA version of Dan Issel was the best version of Dan Issel we've ever seen. ABA version of Julius Erving was the best Julius Erving. Same thing with George McGinnis and like all these guys. So shout out to Dan Issel, one of the best players in ABA history, a Hall of Famer, well deserved. He was a great coach, I remember that. One of the best Denver Nuggets of all time. I appreciate y'all for the support. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Turn on my post notifications if you haven't already. Thank you. Please be safe. Stay on the grind. Have a great day. I'm out. Peace.